Alright, so in this video I'm going to walk you through the day 11 in our week 6 classwork. And based on what we did in last week, day 9, of implementing some of the new functionality that we added to the page, specifically storing things in an array with a form. This week we're going to take that along with the free code camp ideas of if then else's, conditional logic, and then add that to our user form, because all apps, and that's really what we're building, we're not building a traditional web page here, we're building an app. The idea is that everyone needs a login and a new user setup process. So and I will give a little caveat. The way I'm going to implement it here, this is only going to work for one user and only until the page is refreshed, because we store it. And the reason is, let me slow down here, because we're storing this in an array, and when you refresh the array, because we're building the array, it wipes it out each time. But just to foreshadow where we're going with this is that in the next couple weeks we'll show you how to then take that array data and store it into local storage, and then being able to reference it to a JSON object will be a nice refactor of what we're about to see here. Okay, so here's the app, my app, as it sets today. Last time many of you saw this, there was just a username and password here. So let me show you how this works. And I think I have a few things I'm still working on. I definitely want to add more context of showing logically when people are doing things, but this makes sense, right? Login. So when you click login, you have to have a username and password that has been set up. And so if you don't, now this is definitely a refactor I'd want to do, is that you get the user login not successful. Okay. Nice thing there, it takes you back to the home page, and then you get the options. So then under join, this is where you create your user account, okay, and then your user password. And then when you create, again, more verbiage here would be added, but then now you're back here. So before we do, well, actually, let's just go ahead and do this. So actually that's a refactor right there, or just a bug I need to fix, which is really to clear that form. And I thought I had it fixed before, but I'm going to go ahead and show you now, and I'll fix it so I can show you later that particular part. So now when I log in, it validates that the user does exist, and then it shows the body data, and it also reflects back the username. Okay, and this is just something, as we continue to work on the functionality, that I will add to, showing the carbon footprint. And I should talk about this in a future time, what I intend this app to really, how it's going to find the data. But it doesn't matter, all right? So what I also want to show you here is under the inspect, under the console, right? So if I look at ended up calling my array my user, and it should have been user based on what I said before, but my users, is that you can see that that is in, the username and password. So if I refresh it, right, then that's going to be gone, because that's what I was talking about. And the reason is the way we're doing it based on our current skill level that we have. Right? So let me now show you the code. I'll start with the HTML. So in the HTML, what I ended up doing here was adding a couple of divs and giving them classes of not visible so I could hide them away. Something a refactor is coming soon with this too, is talking more about some of the stuff we talked about in last classwork, which was creating elements inside of JavaScript. But for now, this worked fine for what I was trying to accomplish, and I thought it's just a logical next step. But anyway, I put it, and you can do this however you want, as long as it works. So I put it in a div, and then my form, my login form. Now this is a change, and I didn't show you this, so let me show it to you. When you log in, if you don't give anything, these fields now have a built-in validation. Fill out that item, and if you do that one, then it goes to the next one. So what's nice about that, and the reason I implemented that, was because I think I may have mentioned this last time, just adding required into into a input field will then give you that functionality without any other thing than an attribute sitting there. But in order to make that work, you have to do an on submit up in the form. And where we were calling it before was we had a type button and then an on click. So it took me a little while. I had a little bit of a fun time trying to figure out why, because I was just doing it with just a function call and it was getting rid of my array, and that was because the default behavior I found out on an on submit is to refresh the page. And in our particular implementation, I don't want to do that because of what I talked about earlier with the array. So I changed that, and that code allowed me to then take advantage of the take advantage of the HTML5 required built-in goodness. So here are both my show login and create user forms. Pretty much identical, except that they have different IDs on them. Okay, and then of course different placeholder text to show the user. Other than that, there's really nothing different than what you've seen before on my example. The real difference comes, of course, in the JavaScript. So here is, let me scroll down to really where it begins, is right here is creating my user's array. Okay, and really it's here. I'll come back up to what these do in a minute, but here's where storing the new user, right? So as we done before, where I get the user input and then document query or document get element by ID, those IDs. So we store those in a variable. So we grab the username and the password into a variable. We push those into the array. This is a repeat. And then for me, what I did is I just hid, make not visible, the create user, and then I showed the options back. So that functionality, if you look, is really right here, where you, after you join, it does the push and then it brings back those things. Okay, so that's where that functionality is. Pretty simple. Again, using your console log to see if things are happening the way you think they should be happening there is important. And I had to do this because of what I talked about before on the on submit to change the default behavior. Okay, so that's on the store new user. So here's really the more fun part, I think, because this is really nothing new, but this adds in some of that conditional logic that you've been introduced to in Free Code Camp. So now on the user login, same idea of grabbing those variable names, but this time we grab them not to push them into the array, but we grab them to see if the user login name, and let's see, if you remember that from Free Code Camp, that is a strict equality, meaning it has to not just equal, but the type has to equal as well. Say it is that whatever's in that value strictly equal to my user 0, in this case array, the first position in the array, which would be the username. And then so both of these things have to be true in order for the logic for the next series of commands to happen, right? For it to fall into this block right here. So if this is the case, which means that it is valid user credentials, then I'm going to show. I'm going to make hide the login. I'm going to display the user, and what that is what I showed you before. Is this the valid user? Yeah. So where I display the user here, give a little bit of welcome back text. And then I show the body. That's just a short function. I could combine these, but I know there's more coming up here later, which is why I like to have them separate. So show the home, show the body, show the footer, display that user, that's that other content. Okay, so on the else though is where we say give an alert. This is where a refactor definitely could be done, probably will be done. And then hide the, should be hide the user login form, and then also, oh yeah, and then it shows the credentials, so it brings you back once it says the user login is not successful. So that's I hope this is fun. This was actually kind of a pain at times because I had to figure out some things. I couldn't figure out why they don't work, and this is very common in programming, is to just get stuck on something. And I reached out for help and ended up solving it on my own. And the way I solve things is the way, most of us do, which is you do start doing searching, start reading documentation. Stack Overflow is your friend. I mean, these are just things that you will learn. So going back here, um, so this is the video showing you how to help walk through this. But again, I expect to see this in your own app design, um, hopefully differently than the way I've done it. So find your own unique way of implementing these same ideas. I will say this just about our course in general. Yeah, coming into week 6, and I'm thinking, because I've noticed there's like some people are starting to slip behind a little bit, and I'm concerned about that. So I'm thinking of offering at the end of week 7, which would be this Thursday on the 29th, a amnesty, a homework, classwork amnesty. And what that means is that I'm going to give you until this time to turn in late work without penalty, because I've been removing 25% for late work. And if I've already taken off late work, you can ask me just to reevaluate that based on the fact that you had turned it in and it was just late. Because the idea here is really to get you caught up. Because as you see each week, right, we're making pretty sizable steps. And so the further behind you get, the harder it is to get caught up, which is true with anything in life. Okay? So please consider taking advantage of the amnesty I'm going to offer, homework, classwork amnesty, that will be here on the 29th. And since there's a couple of you only in the online mode, I'd like to again do a shout out to Valley Dev Fest. I'm working on it today, and a great event on October 22nd. If you're interested, please talk to me about this. We have an amazing lineup of speakers, people from Google coming down, great content, fun day. And if you buy the t-shirt, that is your ticket in. Okay, so we are running a Teespring, but it ends next week. So if you get the t-shirt, not only do you get the t-shirt, but you also get in. The t-shirt's pretty cool. So Google, Fresno City, GDG Fresno, Bitwise, Idealworks, good sponsors. So that's my plug, my shameless plug. Have a great week. Talk to you soon. Bye.